charts. So this is a 1-day chart.
Are you sharing something, Ranjit? Because we cannot see your screen.
You cannot see my screen?
No.
I can see. No, I can see.
Something from my side. Okay, go ahead.
So as you see here, the market price has started from 4th of September. Market has opened at this price, which is around 2100 maybe. Oh, no, 2082 or something. So my argument was, if I see the 5 days chart, the stock has fallen from 2110 to 2080. Where is this 100 rupees is missing? Not 100 rupees, 20 rupees is missing. I want to know where this gap was found. How this will be calculated? If you
I understood this question long back. Go to that 5-day chart. I will explain. So basically, he is telling that it closed at 2110, but next day it has opened at 2080. Where is that 30 rupees gone? Correct, right?
Yeah.
And tell me the dates. Which date it closed at that price? So I think it will be closing of the 3rd and opening of 4th. You are saying.
Yeah.
So
Nishant,
on 3rd
I want
it
to
closed.
know who are the buyers and sellers and at what time the transactions are done here.
There are no buyers and sellers. That is what I'm saying. So anyways, is the question clear to everyone? Thursday it closed at 2110 and Friday it opened at 2080. Clear? Question is clear to everyone?
Just one more additional point to everyone.
Yes.
Normally, I expect chart to be sequential, and somehow this was adjusted by our Nifty or NSE department. NSE, I don't know where. So Nishant is giving the information about this. Why it happened? Okay.
Fine. Now, first of all, this chart is not made properly. Ideally, it should be one sequence. But anyways, how that it has opened 30 rupees gap down, right? That is your question.
Yeah.
Clear?
Yeah.
Is the question clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yeah.
Does anyone know the answer?
Yeah, I think I know that.
I will.
Okay, go ahead, Ishwar.
Basically, the price at which you buy and sell is based on how many bids there are, at what price somebody is bidding, and at what price somebody wants to sell. So it can happen that the next day there are so many buyers who want to sell at this price, and so many sellers who want to sell at this price, and they have to match. And it just happens so that the following day there are people who are selling it at a lesser price, and you just have to accept that.
That is all, Ranjit. That is what I tried to explain you so many times. So in simple words, right? On Friday closing, the last trade, what you call LTP, right? Last traded price. The last trade happened at 2110, which means you wanted to sell 1 lakh shares at 2110, and I wanted the buy shares at 2110. Trade happened. On Thursday night, overnight, US market crashed 4% because Joe Biden was leading Obama and a variety of other factors. Our economy also, GDP shrank by 24% odd. So a lot of bad news was there. So next day morning, the sellers panicked. Okay, this is called panic selling. So the seller thought that if I put the order at 2110, it may not get sold. Okay, and I want to sell 1 lakh shares at 2110. So it will not get sold. He wanted liquid cash because maybe he bought it at 1000 or 1200 or 1500. He still was sitting on a lot of profit. Even if he was not sitting on profit, he is a trader. He wanted to cover his losses, whatever be the reason. As a seller, he decided to sell it at 2080. The buyer, there was somebody ready to buy at that price. Trade happened. That is why you see it opened with a gap down. And this happens everywhere in the world.
Okay. But my question was, if the order, it's not executed. Okay, it's not executed. It will be executed in the actual hour itself in the tradable hours only.
Absolutely right. Your trading hours are determined, right? So your AMO orders are placed at 9:07 or whatever, and your actual trading starts at 9:15. So what is AMO? So basically Nifty follows a FIFO method, first in, first out. So if your order is placed as an AMO, based on the speed of the internet connection that your service provider is using, whichever trade hits the market first. So for example, if I want to sell 1 lakh shares of Reliance and I have placed an AMO, and you have also placed 1 lakh shares selling of Reliance, whichever internet provider is faster, that trade will hit to Nifty. So if my trade hit at 9:07:01 and your trade hit at 9:07:02, the first trade to get executed will be yours, whichever hit first at 9:15. So the trading will start from 9:15:01. Similarly, from a buyer perspective, whichever trade was placed first that will get executed, and then after that. So for example, if I want to sell at 2,000 rupees 1 lakh shares of Reliance, and only 30,000 buyers were there at 2,000, only 30,000 shares will get filled. So that is called concept of order and fill. Rest 70,000 will remain unsold. And then the price will keep dropping. The price may go to 1980. Then if I want, I'll have to change my order to 1980 to get it executed. Is this clear to everyone?
Clear, but I feel this is unfair because such activity should be take place in the market hours itself.
So it is taking place in market hours only. Yeah, this guy has given wrong chart. Zerodha has a lot of bugs, I told already. This should have been a continuous chart, just that it should show that it has opened like this. So next day it has fallen, one shot, tuck.
Okay.
Simple, yeah. It's market is basically buyer and seller. If there are a lot of selling pressure, automatically price will fall. There are many times I try to sell some shares which are not very liquid. The trade, even if it is at 8 rupees and my order is at 8 rupees, it doesn't get executed because I am trying to sell 5,000 shares and only 10-20 shares are changing hand at that price. So it goes to 8, 10 shares get sold, it goes back to 7.95 and I keep waiting. So the only other option I have is change my price and sell it. But I am sticking to my price of 8, so it doesn't get executed. Sometimes whole day I have waited from 9:30. It has touched 8 many times. If you see day high low, 8 it has touched. But my order did not get executed because not enough quantity of buyers was there. Sometimes I want to sell 5,000 but only 200 get sold. All this will happen. It is a simple demand supply game. Similarly, it goes up also, right? One shot. So reverse can also happen. A lot of good news came in Reliance overnight. So next day, the seller was last trade happened at 2,000. Next day, seller will say, because of the good news, now I will sell at 2,200. That day you don't complain. See, gap up here.
No, even this one I feel unfair. It's if I want to make entry, it should be fair price. But
it is fair price, right? You should have made entry one day, right? Why you are going by the minute fluctuations? If you are a long-term player, anyways, you are not bothered about one day, right? And if you are a trader, then you have to live with all this.
My bother. I am just want to understand the system. It's not about my bother.
Yeah, so the system is that only, and it works everywhere the same. This is what is called after hours. You see, right? Apple after closing also it says it has fallen another 3%, which means because of some bad news, next day it will open lower price. So many times we have seen that.
I mean, yeah, Nasdaq you can also buy the stocks in the weekends also. So it's a separate story. There, I think they add some. Their setup is different.
No, everyone has a trading time, right? I don't think so. These are all 24/7 exchanges.
No, actually, yes.
That's only cryptocurrency, right?
No, it's you are right that trading hours. Your trading is there officially in this one, but the broker will give leverage. I don't know, but somehow we can still buy the stocks during the weekends.
I have no idea how that works. So you'll have to check that. But as far as I know, Nasdaq has open and close times. I can pull that up.
Yeah, sure. There is a open and a close time.
So then that is the official hours, right? Whatever is happening after that is unofficial. I don't know how that is happening.
Okay, I'm new to this chart, Nishant and Sri. Okay, Ranjit. So what the green means, is it increase? Red is down. Is it so?
Green means buyers. Red means sellers.
Yeah, NYSE and Nasdaq is 9:30 to 4 only weekdays.
Yes, Nishant.
And this is Yeah, so
weekend also you can still buy and sell.
that is unofficial, man. That to in US, what the broker does, they will buy one share of Amazon, and it is $400, but you can buy only $4 worth of Amazon, which means 1/100 part of one share. But that is not official, na? That the broker is doing. So what he is doing is he is buying one share and making it into whatever number of parts, and you can buy. So he's saying I have split it into 100 parts. So you can buy one part by paying $4. Dipti wants to buy 3 parts, so she will pay $12. Nimit wants to buy 10 parts, so he'll pay $40. Then if Amazon goes to 50, Nimit will get the same. 500, then Nimit will get 25% profit. So whatever profit loss, same percentage will be applied. So it goes from 400 to 500, Nimit's 40 becomes 50. If it goes from 400 to 300, his 40 becomes 30. But that is not official, na? That is not, Nasdaq is not allowing that. That your broker is doing. That the broker can provide any facility that Indian broker can also provide. But here SEBI has a lot of rules. That is why they are not able to provide. Because in US, as we have discussed many times, first of all, you only share the data, right? 45% of household saving goes into equity. In India, it is only 14%.
Yep.
So that is a equity culture. We have never been an equity culture, because what our grandparents and parents taught us, beta gold खरीदो, silver खरीदो, रखे रहो उसको घर में, pass it on to your children. Right? There are so many houses which have silver plates and all, right? They pass it from generation to generation. Silver plate. It is also considered good to drink from silver. It is good for your brain. So drink from silver glass, eat in silver plate, all that.
Okay, Nishant, I think it's clear now. I think we can continue with other questions.
Fine. So who else had a question? Vaibhav had a question, I believe.
Not that I can remember of. I think this week I had all my answers.
I think you had some
Nishan,
points. Yeah.
Nishan, just want to check here. So whatever the shares which exchange in the secondary market are already disclosed shares, and the prices will just keep on increasing among this already disclosed share, right? Based on supply and demand.
Yeah. So when you say disclosed share, what do you mean?
Initially, when you were explaining about the primary and the secondary market, the company will come up with a kind of a capital, a number of shares issued shares.
Correct. Yes. Issued shares. Yes. So for example, if Reliance, we were talking about Reliance, has totally 10 crore shares issued in the market, those 10 crore shares will keep changing hands.
No, Nishant, I think Hari's argument, I think he is having understanding of there is a direct relationship between the deals which are made in the secondary market. It doesn't involve anything in the volume of the primary market. This part should be clear with Srihari. I think he is confused with this part.
No. That's not the question which I was asking. See, for example, initially, and when IPO was issued, so they issued a kind of an 10,000 crores share, whatever it is. So, when it's listed, so it will not be immediately. All the shares will not be purchased by all the shareholders, right? All the retail investors or any investors. So here, how will the fluctuation of the price happens? It's more price and demand, that I understand. But I'm trying to understand it more practically. When the company starts and it issues with the 10 crore shares, immediately everyone will not purchase that, right?
No, not everyone will purchase. So I'm still not very clear with the question, but say for example, Reliance issued 100 crore shares. Okay. So somebody will buy, right? So maybe you did not buy, but maybe Vaibhav bought or somebody bought. So later on,
So you mean initially all the shares which are issued should have been holding by some party?
Correct. All the 100 crore will be bought by someone. So say like we say, right, most of the time how it happens is, say some big player will be there whom you call asset manager and all, right? Like in India, for example, HDFC Asset Management. It's a company that has multiple mutual funds. It provides multiple products. So HDFC mutual fund itself has 100 schemes. Each of those schemes may buy 1 crore shares. So HDFC mutual fund alone bought 30 crore shares through various schemes. And obviously that money was invested by retail investor only. But as of today, the investor in Reliance is the HDFC mutual fund scheme. And their in turn, their investor is the normal public. Then in India, LIC gets a lot of premium. So not just LIC, all the insurance companies, so ICICI, Prudential, whatever, they are big buyers. So they will buy another 10 crore shares. So another 30 crore gone. So total 60 crore gone. And then rest people like you and me will buy 5,000, 2,000, 100, 250, whatever. So that is known as the retail portion. So in total, including everyone, all the 100 crore shares are sold. And the number of buyers, which the big buyer is known as an institutional buyer, somebody with a lot of money is known as HNI, somebody with even more money is known as UHNI, somebody with less money is known as retail investor. Including all this, totally 5 lakh people bought the shares. So between 5 lakh people, which are individuals plus corporate entities like mutual fund, etc., between these 5 lakh different individuals and entities, all the 100 crore share were sold. Understood?
No, I just want to understand here. So what if it is undersubscribed?
So when it is undersubscribed, when I explained, there are different rules, right? So the investment manager or the investment bank through whom this issue was done, there are certain clauses. So if it was fully underwritten, if say only it was 80 crore was bought by the public, the remaining 20 crore will be bought by that underwriter. But in this scenario, the underwriter charges higher fees. So if you are going with this arrangement as a company, the underwriter will do this, but he will charge you maybe 3% commission. So the total, say 100 crore shares and each share is worth 1,000 rupees. So total 100,000 crores. So he will charge 3% of that, 3,000 crore as commission. Whereas if you don't go with that agreement, then whatever is undersold is undersold. It is the later on the company will try to sell again in a FPO or whatever. But in this case, the commission will be less for the investment bank.
Yeah, got it.
But okay, but Nishant here, if 100% or 100,000 share or 1 lakh share, but the company or the whoever the issuer have to keep their portion, right? Or like if 51% or 50% the promoters share.
Yes, so the issuer is the company, right? Promoter
Yeah.
might already be holding shares. So in the scenario which I just explained, maybe the promoter is already holding 200 crore shares. So additional 100 crore are issued to the public. So total is 300 crore. But promoter is holding 200 out of 300 crore. So that is already 67%, right?
Yeah. Right. If okay, he is keep on issuing and or is adding the shares, but what happens if it's it comes to 50% of shares only he has compared to it's available with the others.
Yeah, that also happens, right? So it depends on the promoter, right? Before the IPO, the promoter will decide whether he wants to divest how much with the public. So for example, today Paytm, right? So Paytm was started by this Vijay Shekhar or whatever his name is. Okay. He owned 100% of Paytm. Now he needed 1,000 crores to expand the business. So he decided that, okay, the total value of Paytm is 10,000 crores. So to get 1,000 crores, I need to sell 10% of the share. Now, if he is comfortable selling 10% of the share, he will sell. If somebody is comfortable buying that 10% at 1,000 crores, he will give him the money. It is same with Tesla, right? Like today, Tesla's value has gone up so much. Now Musk is thinking of raising another 5 billion from the market, which means another 1.5% equity will have to be issued because currently Tesla is at 500 billion. But if he wants 50 billion, he will have to sell 10% of the company, which means his own stake may come down. Is he ready to do that? Yes, no. If he is not ready to do that, tomorrow, if the share price falls, he may not get the same value. Today, it might be wise for Tesla to raise 50 billion for its future. So it all depends how much they are ready to divest, how much they are not ready to divest. It all depends on the promoter. Like for example, Reliance, I keep saying, right? They could have come with an FPO, but they chose not to come with FPO because they wanted to protect that 51% share of Ambani. If they have come with FPO and Ambani bought 0 shares, his stake would have come down to below 51. But he didn't want that. So he went for a rights issue
Nishan, the small question here. I don't tell this one with the Yes Bank. It's another story. But with the Yes Bank, who diluted the stake?
Means?
For FPO, you said promoter has to dilute the stake, right? If I understand correctly, now you just said Reliance don't want to dilute the stake, so they didn't go for FPO.
So
Correct?
FP, correct. So Yes Bank, I don't know who was the promoter, but Yes Bank anyways went through bankruptcy, right? So it was a forced sell because they were forced to raise money from the market to survive. See, there are different times at which company raises money, right? One is to raise money when the company is in a strong position. Like for example, as I said, Tesla, its share price has gone up like anything. Today is a good time to raise money because everybody is like uh, very much happy with Tesla. It is like in a bull run or whatever, right? That Tesla is in a good times now. So it is a good time as a Tesla investor to raise the money.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas later on, it may not be. So the scenario in which Yes Bank you keep bringing, it was a distress sell. So in a distress sell, obviously you will not get the proper price. So everybody had to go for some compromises. Equity shareholder lost money. Banks who had lent to Yes Bank, they lost money. A lot of people suffered losses.
No, I think because the reason why I raised this issue is if that was the case, many bankruptcy companies were not performing better in the market, but they can go for FPO and they can raise the money from the open market, right?
Yeah, but somebody should buy, na. So that day I was telling right to WebHow that today, for example, Vodafone says I will take $100 billion from the market, which means in India rupees 8 lakh crores. But 8 lakh crore worth of shares, even if say one share is 10 rupees, you divide 8 lakh crore by 10, 80,000 crore shares. Somebody should buy that 80,000 crore shares, right? So which means if 1 crore people will have to buy 80,000 shares each for it to get that much money. Are there 1 crore people ready to buy Vodafone shares? Or some big party should buy 1 crore shares, 2 crore shares, 100 crore shares of Vodafone? Who will buy that much shares? Who will believe in Vodafone? Because again, it comes to who is the founder. Who's the founder of Vodafone? One is the British entity Vodafone. They are saying, I don't want to do anything because I'm not happy with Vodafone India. So they are washed their hands. The other is idea that Kumar Mangalam Birla. Is he ready to support? Or some new investor need to come, right? Maybe Apple can say, okay, I'm ready to invest 30 billion because Vodafone has license in India. I will invest. I will become a telecom operator. I will capture Indian market. I will bundle my phones with Vodafone Idea subscription. I will sell a lot of iPhones. They can come with that plan, but somebody should come, right? Because once they have that $100 billion, then they can do a lot with it. Buy 5G license and all that. Then they can compete with Jio, right? Why is Jio raising all this money? Because they need the money power to get into multiple business. Now, for example, recently Jio started offering fiber. Now they are giving much more discount than this Act and all. So slowly they will take customers of Act. In my area, every day they are getting 500 new connections because they are giving 1500, 500 Mbps unlimited data along with Netflix, everything, 12 apps. So people are taking it. Act was not giving any of that. But to give that offer, initially they are suffering loss, right? Basically, if for 1500 plus GST, for 1800, they are giving me 12 apps. Apps will only charge them. But the objective is that today there are 1 million, 10 lakh Geo boxes in houses. If they can get it to 5 crore, 50 million, then they can show ads and all that. That is their basically to capture the living room of the customer. So that is the strategy they are following. So 1 million to 50.
Similar, right? Uber, right? Initially, they were given, no, they were giving so much discount. They got on a lot of customer. They made a customer to use Uber, and now everybody started using Uber, right? So
yeah, but that model failed, right? Because they went with IPO, they are not able to show profits. Now their share is tanking. Because people got impatient. See, because as a loss-making business, how long can you survive? The Reliance story is different, right? They are not loss-making because they have other business where they are making profit. See, look at ITC for example. ITC makes money from cigarette. So that whatever profit they are getting from cigarette, they are investing in FMCG. But FMCG margin is only 2%, which means for every 100 crore in sales, only 2 crore is profit. Is that really worth it? Once the cigarette business is gone, what they will do? That is why I tried to diversify, but they couldn't do it. Think of all the oil companies. They have to all diversify. They all know that. But are they good enough to diversify? Because they have a legacy model, right? Where they have made bundles of money from oil. For example, IBM. IBM couldn't rotate, right? So many new players came in the market. Otherwise, IBM was the king during the mainframe days. HP had revenues of $110 billion per year, but zero profit. With such high revenue, no profit. Finally, that company sold so many businesses. First they bought, then they sold. A lot of things happens. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one question, Nishant. This is Akash. So I had a question related to the dividends. Question related to the dividends is like, does the company pay an interest on the dividends which we are like if we are having the stock? That also I want to know for how long time should we have the stock if we are getting that, if we are eligible to get that interest, and do we have a cumulative effect on the dividend?
No, what interest on dividend?
Like for example, how we keep do we have a cumulative effect on dividend, like is the new value, like for example, just imagine that this quarter I receive $1 as the dividend, and next quarter I receive again $1. So after a particular time, do they consider this as $2, or they still consider it as only $1 every time? Do they provide an interest on this value?
No, there is no concept of interest here. So you have confused yourself. So the way dividend works is, how does dividend work? So in your $1 example only, say the share price of the company is $30, and every year it is making a profit of $10 per share. Okay, I'm just taking hypothetical examples. In real world, it will not happen like that anyways, because P ratio will not be 2. But say, so let's take a more realistic example. The price of the share is $300. And the profit per share is $10. $10 per share. So with a P ratio of 30. Clear?
Yes.
Now with the $10 profit per share, what the company says is my dividend payout ratio will be $40%. Clear?
Okay. Okay.
Which means every year out of that $10 profit, the company will pay out $4. Now 40% is the ratio. I will come to the next year. So now that 40% means $4. They will say we will pay it out as quarterly $1. Clear?
Okay.
Next year, the profit of the company went up from $10 to $12.
Okay.
So the company said, I will maintain the same ratio of 40%, which means this year they will pay 40% of $12.
Okay. Okay.
So they will pay $4.8. Similarly, they will divide by 4, so 1.2. So basically, my profit went up by 20%, so my dividend also went up by 20%. But there is no concept of interest on dividend. Now, whatever dividend you are getting, you can choose to reinvest in the share of the company. That will get compounded for you.
Okay,
So,
but is there a method in which like the company decides that the dividend which they will like we have an option of like taking the dividend, or we keep the dividend with the company and then like they can give an interest on that or something like that?
They don't give interest, they'll give you shares for that. That is known as DRP, dividend reinvestment plan.
Okay.
So like I had mentioned, in corporate actions, there are mandatory and voluntary, and mandatory with choice. So dividend is mandatory with choice. So in dividend, you can have a choice of either taking a cash dividend or a stock dividend, which means instead of the cash $1, you take equivalent amount of shares. But generally for $1, they will not give you. The way they will give you is only full share. So as I mentioned in this example, the share value was $300. So only if your total dividend is more than $300, they'll give you one share. So for example, your dividend was say $310 for this quarter. They'll give you one share and $10 in cash, because they'll not give you fractional shares and all. But if your dividend is only $280, they'll pay you in cash. And then you take that money, add your own $20 and buy the share from the market.
Okay. So just to confirm, that means what the mantra which Warren Buffett says, that for long-term investment, you invest in dividend stocks. So what he did was like he invested before in 60s in these stocks like Coca-Cola and all. Then he earned dividends from them and he again reinvested in the same stock, right?
Correct. He might have done that.
Okay. Thank you.
So there are other tax implications, like if you reinvest dividends, you don't pay taxes and all that. So that also becomes very efficient.
Actually, this idea is there still. I think it's already implemented in India. If you invest the same money,
Yeah, dividend reinvestment option is always there.
how to do that, Nishant? Because it will be coming to our normal account, right? How to claim that part? I don't know how these things works. Can you explain
Just
the flow?
check with the broker. Check with the broker whether that company is allowing that option. Not all companies, when declaring dividend, they don't give that option. Some companies give, some companies don't give. So if they don't give, you just take the dividend, whatever is your dividend amount, and reinvest. You buy shares from the open market. Na? Trading to chalu hi hai.
Yeah, but I think okay.
So yeah. Any other questions anyone had?
Nishant, one more question. Actually, this FPO, is there any rules in SEBI that not every company will go for FPO? Like only certain company with a good papers or good balance sheet should go to rules or something like that. There is any rules? Because it was the tool to raise
Generally,
money. It was the tool to
generally,
raise money. So many companies would have done that, right?
no. So generally, there is not much, right? But if a company keeps coming for FPO again and again, that means why does the company need so much money? Is it not making profit? Is it making profit? Like the lot of questions are there, right? Like for example, again, Infosys, for example, I don't think so. It has ever done an FPO because every year it is generating what $2 billion in profit, 15,000 crores. That money itself you is not able to utilize. Neither it is paying dividends, neither it is buying some other company. That cash is only getting added. So why it wants to come for FPO? So FPO, it depends on the reason, right? Like for example, today Reliance, if it wants to do FPO and raise maybe another 10, $20 billion from the market, people will receive it well only because they have a brand, they have that trust. And when a company is going for FPO, they will publish the DRHP. They will mention that I am raising this extra $10 billion, which is roughly 80,000 crore rupees, to do what? Okay, I have a loan of 30,000 crore, so I will repay that. Good. So if I repay 30,000 crore loan, I will save 3,000 crore interest. So that is straight savings. Then what I will do with the remaining 50,000 crores? I will open so many branches. Each branch will cost me 1 crore or 2 crore. So I will open 2,500 more branches of Reliance Retail across India. With each branch, I will generate so many sales. If they have that kind of plan, people will be ready to invest. So it all depends which company, what criteria. If a company comes for a FPO without any reason every year, obviously nobody will buy only, right? People have to also buy, na? To Sri Hari's question. You can just try to sell the share. Somebody has to buy also, na? If today Vodafone comes with 500 crore shares at 100 rupees, somebody should buy at that price, na? Who will buy?
Nishant, in the FPO, can the promoters decide that they can issue their shares in the secondary market? Or
Yes, that is known as offer for sale, right? We covered this. So offer for sale is if any existing shareholder want to sell his shares, he can do it, which is known as OFS. But anyways, the promoter need not wait for a FPO. Promoter can sell today also. Like for example, for Reliance Industries, I don't think so Mukesh Ambani has any lock-in anymore because his family has owned shares for many years. So today if Mukesh Ambani wants to sell 10% of Reliance, he can sell. But why will he sell? He knows that his company is growing, profits are growing. Anyways, whatever profit Reliance made last year with 51% ownership, Mukesh Ambani will get whatever 10,000 crores. That much is more than enough for living his expenses, right? Why he wants to sell his share? It is like a golden egg laying goose, right? Why slay the goose till it is laying the golden egg? When he sees the company going down, then he may want to exit, or if he wants to retire. I doubt Mukesh will retire. He will retire only from life only. I doubt he'll retire from
so
the company.
here, so here FPO in the sense, so unissued shares will be issued in the market again newly. New shares will be issued.
Exactly. No, so
Okay.
in
So
FPO need not
OFS is
always see F exactly. So in FPO actually offer for sale will not apply because anyways that would have been converted during the IPO itself. So now anyone who owns shares, once they are past their lock-in period, they can sell it. So as I said, Mukesh Ambani, I don't know whatever shares he owns of Reliance, there is no lock-in. So for example, Narayan Murthy, I don't know if he owns 2% or 3% whatever of Infosys, there is no more lock-in because he got it in 1981. Now lock-in IPO was Infosys IPO was in 91. So generally even after the IPO there will be a 3 or 5 year lock-in. So that got over in 96. Now Narayana Murthy is free to sell his shares, but he is not selling because he doesn't need the money, whatever. Dividends are coming. If he wants, he can sell, make it 0. And it will easily get sold. It may not get sold in one day, but over 1 or 2 months, he can easily sell. So if 3% of Infosys, which Narayana Murthy owns, is 300 crore shares, example, every day he can sell 1 crore shares. In 300 trading sessions, he'll be at 0. Or he can sell 2 crore shares. Somebody will buy it up. Did it answer your question, Srihari?
Yeah, I mean, I just wanted to understand exact difference between FPO and OFS. So in FPO, completely new shares will be issued, and in OFS, it's only promoters will release their share.
Yes, so OFS is part of the IPO process. So in the IPO, you have 2 options. See, a company is unlisted. Last time I explained, right? When a company is unlisted, there is not a very good secondary market, liquid market to sell the shares. So during the IPO, 2 things happens. The company can create new shares and sell them. The money will come to the company. The other shareholders who already hold shares can also sell part of their shares. For example, the company before the IPO had 10 crore shares. Okay. Before the IPO, 10 crore shares. Is this clear?
Yeah.
Those 10 crore shares were bought by Deepti 1 crore, Nimit 1 crore, Asrar 1 crore, Akash 1 crore, Vaibhav 1 crore, Raja 1 crore, Srihari 1 crore, Nishant 1 crore. Like that. 10 of us had 1 crore. Clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, during the IPO, company can do 2 things. These 10 crore shares are there. Company can issue 10 crore more shares. So each of us own 10% of the company, right? After 10 crore new shares, the total shares will become 20 crore. And each of our share will become 5% because 1 by 20 is 5%. 1 by 10 was 10%. Clear?
Yeah. So here face value will also reduce then.
No, face value will always remain same. Okay. So this additional 10 crore share that are being issued, these are being issued by same face value, but they will be sold in the market at market price. So say face value is 10, market price may be 50. So this will be sold, and if all the 10 crore shares are sold at 50, company will get additional 500 crores to do the business, whatever, to open new plant, to repay old debt, whatever the company wants to do. In this similar IPO time, is this clear?
Okay,
Yeah,
here,
here it is.
okay, please go ahead. I have some doubt. Yeah.
Okay, tell me, what is the doubt?
No, this market price you were saying, no, that is, then there should be a value for this company, right? For example, this all are invested 10 crore, right? Here, okay, 10 crore invested, and they have a 10 crore share, 10 people.
No, they
But
have not invested 10 crores. They each have 10 crore shares. Total shares before the IPO was, total shares before the IPO was 10 crore. Each one has 1 crore shares. At what price they invested, I'm not getting into all that.
Okay, and the value of the company that time is market values of the company, the asset, property, everything. You know, it's maybe a 50 crore. Okay, then
no, based on the profit, the IPO price will be decided, right? So if the company had generated 20 crore profit at a 30 PE, the total value of the company will be 600 crores. So when I'm issuing 10 crore new shares, total share will be 20 crore, and total value of the company is 600 crore, which means 600 crore divided by 20. So each share will be priced at 30 rupees, something like that. So that calculation will be done.
okay, so the market price are calculated based on the value of the company, right?
Based on the profit of the company, whatever was the previous 2-3 year profit and what is the expected profit, based on that valuation will be done. It's a complex process. Let's not get into that now.
Okay,
but
right,
yeah,
okay.
based on any calculation, they will come with a number and they will say, okay, if we go for the IPO at 70 rupees, we will be able to sell the shares. So that is how they price the IPO.
Okay.
Okay, Srihari, is it clear?
Yeah, I mean, actually, once the additional share comes, so where does the OFS exactly comes here? So
yes,
the
that is what I was coming with.
Yeah.
So this new share that is being sold, that additional 10 crore, this money will come to the company. The existing shareholders, they may also think that I already have 1 crore share of the company. Now I want to sell some of those shares. And earlier when it was not listed, I was not able to sell. Now that it is listed, I can sell. So say I decide to sell 20 lakh of my share. Ranjit decide to sell 5 lakh. You decide to sell 30 lakh. Somebody decide to sell 40 lakh. So like that, total comes to around maybe 2 crores. So this 2 crore share will also be sold in the same IPO at 70 rupees. And whoever sold how much? So if I sold 5 lakh, I will get money for that 5 lakh. Ranjit sold 20 lakh, he will get money for that 20 lakh. Got it?
Okay. So OFS is kind of a part of IPO where the promoters' shares will be given to the investors.
It need not just be the promoter, right? Anyone who invested in the company before it got listed.
Okay.
So,
yeah. Okay.
like for example,
Either
in all these, just look at Flipkart here. Flipkart started in 2008. Okay, so somebody, all these promoters got the shares, but now slowly Flipkart got so many investors, right? Now, like for example, Walmart, you will not say is the promoter, right? Walmart bought Flipkart later, but today Walmart owns 80% of the shares. Now, if Flipkart goes for IPO, Walmart may decide that they don't want to continue holding 80% of Flipkart, so they may want to dilute 10% of that. So Walmart may sell 10% of its share. So after IPO, Walmart, instead of holding 80% of Flipkart, will own only 70% of Flipkart, something like that. And then they may come with a separate IPO for PhonePe, because PhonePe is also part of Flipkart now. Whatever way they want to list, they can list Flipkart separately, they can list Walmart separately, they can list PhonePe separately. A lot of things are possible.
So here, for example, if in the IPO itself, I mean, I understood the OFS concept over here. So it's an additional add-on to that. So if it is undersubscribed, so then the underwriter will come into picture. For example, if underwriter is not in picture, and if we don't meet the minimum criteria to hit the IPO, so then the IPO will be cancelled, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, got it. Thank you.
But Nishant, in that case, when, for example, Walmart, they want to sell a portion of their shares, in that case, wouldn't it depend upon the amount of shares issued by the company? I mean, the percentage that you're saying, that okay, for example, if they're holding 80%, now they go on to 70%, then wouldn't that depend upon the number of shares they are issuing in the market, and then finally dependent on that, their like own shares will be diluted. After the IPO, they can choose to sell whatever percent of shares, but then, I mean, I'm not able
Correct.
to.
Yes. Correct. So for example, today if Flipkart has issued total 100 crore shares, 80 crore is owned by Walmart. That is why they are 80% shareholder. Tomorrow, if Flipkart goes for IPO, there is no such rule that Flipkart has to sell only so many shares in the IPO. Flipkart can sell only 10 crore shares in the IPO, which means the new shareholding will be 110 crore. Out of 110 crore, if Walmart continues to hold 80 crore, it will be roughly owning about 73% of Flipkart. But Walmart may decide that they don't want to hold 73%, they want to go to 65. So they will sell some more. As I had mentioned, SEBI guideline is for an IPO, no one shareholder should hold more than 75. That's it. So 10% can be diluted. And then even after that, after the IPO, they give 1 or 2 year time to bring it below 75. Like for example, Kotak Mahindra Bank. This Uday Kotak family, the Kotak family owned more than 82% in Kotak Mahindra Bank for a very long time. So they were given some time, like within 2 years, bring it below 75. Similarly, Bandhan Bank, there the promoters owned almost 90%. They were given 2-3 years time, but they did not. After repeated warning from SEBI, they did not comply. So finally, what RBI did, and even RBI has some rules. So even RBI put sanction that they cannot open any new branch. Then recently they have diluted. You can read the Bandhan Bank case study.
Okay.
So you mean any listed company will there is a restriction how much a promoter should hold?
Yeah, this I told so many times. You are forgetting whatever I am telling. Wipro example 100 times I have given. So earlier, Azim Premji used to own 96% of Wipro. Then this guidelines came that promoter cannot hold more than 75%. So slowly he had to sell 21%. And promoter means promoter family. So it is not that he will transfer some share to his wife. That will be still considered as promoter family. So he has
Into
to actually
undivided
sell it.
family.
Yeah. So no, basically the people cannot do all this jugaad. So they will check properly. So he needs to basically sell it to outside investor. This is to protect other rights, right? Because if one person is owning 96%, he will basically do whatever he wants. If somebody sells, he'll say, get lost. I don't care. You have so much problem, you sell your shares. I will take the decision. When it is less than 75, it is still not ideal, but at least there will be some kind of corporate governance. That is why, right, again, I keep telling why Infosys share price was always at a premium, because it was the first company from India to list in US, first ADR to get listed. Promoter shareholding was always below 20%. The rest was always owned by either retail investor or HNI or institutional investors. So they always had a multiple shareholding pattern. So it was always well governed. It may not always work, but in their case, it worked. But if you look at it practically, it is good to have diversified shareholding, because if one group has too much control, it's not good.
Okay, so Nishant, can you explain with this example? See, I'm, I have a company. I started a company 3 years before. I invested just 1,000 rupees. Now the company's worth is 5,000 rupees. To make it very simple, okay. And I'm making every year, say 1,000 rupees profit. Okay, right. If I want to go with the IPO, then so it's based on based on the profit I'm making. So the IPO is the shares are done calculating the profit or the current worth of the 5,000.
No. So when you are saying current worth is 5,000, the current worth is dependent on profit, right? So if your profit is 1,000, your current worth may be 10,000. But yeah, see,
No,
it is dependent on current worth. Yeah. So your question, I did not get the logic of the question, but yeah, IPO is dependent on current worth. So if you started with 1,000 and current worth is 5,000, if you sell 1,000 worth of shares in the market, you will be diluting 20% stake. Simple.
no. What I was saying, okay. No, see, for example, the current worth means yes, based on how much it's. Is it only okay? The worth is including how much it makes from business, right? Not only it's about properties and
No.
company
When you say
plant.
current worth of a company is always determined by the profits, that is what I'm saying. So you
Uh,
started with 1,000 rupees. That is your initial investment.
yeah.
But say today the company is making 2,000 rupees as profits because you did very good. In 3 years, the profits are 2,000 per year. So then on that you will apply that P ratio, na? So you will say into 30 because your profits are growing 30% every year. So you are saying my company is worth, market value of the company is 2,000. So there is something called book value, something called market value. When you are going for IPO, you will not go at book value. You will always go at market value. So market value of the company is 2,000 is my current profit. And because my profit is growing at 30%, I am assigning a P ratio of 30, which means the total value of my company is 60,000. So my original investment has already gone 60x.
No, okay. My question was, see, there will be a consider to make a business, you need some resources, right? For example, you have a plant that is no that actual book value or market value is say no 3,000 rupees, okay, and you're making a profit of 2,000. That's why I said 5,000. Okay, the current value.
No, that is not how you get
No,
the current value.
Okay,
the
that's what
current value
I'm.
would be the current value would be the sum of all future profits or expected income as well. It's called discounted cash flow model. That is the simplest form of calculating something like this.
Okay, that means your all the assets plus expected income, is it, or from sales? What, how you calculate the no, worth or the current worth or market worth of a company?
Even if you, for example, if you're buying a house, you'll do the same thing, right? I mean, you'll see whatever, if you want to buy a house and rent it out, you'll see what is the rent I'm expecting in the next 20 years or so. And that also you'll take into account while buying a house. Something similar only. We're expecting X income over the next few years. If with a PE of 30, let's say it's growing year on year on a 30% rate, you'll discount all the cash flows to the current market to the today's value in terms of you'll discount it for at a particular interest rate. So that's how the worth of the future incomes is calculated. And also, like you said, the assets, the property, everything. And there will be some hype from the market also. So based on that, the share price will be determined.
Okay, I think you very briefly explained, but it would be very nice, in not now, but in some classes, Deepa or Nishant, if you explain a little more detail with some examples, it would be very helpful. No, it would be very good. Yeah, I got a
Yeah, sure. So
yeah.
we can do the discounted cash flow some other day, but right now, see, if your question is, there are two concepts, right? One is book value, one is market value. How do you calculate market value of a company? So I gave you the simplest way, right? You take your current year profit and you assign a P ratio to it. So if my current year profit is 2000 crores, sorry, 2000 rupees, and my profits are growing at 30%, which means every year my profit will keep growing at 30%. So what the market says is, I will assign a P ratio of 30. So 2000 into 30, your market value comes to 60,000. As simple as that. Next year, when the profit goes to 2600, its value will increase to 78,000, like that. So at 60,000 rupees, the IPO will be done. Based on 60,000, how many shares you are issuing? If you are going to issue 1000 shares, it will be 60 rupees per share. Simple. Okay. Who just joined? Somebody joined as guest. We can't hear you. Venkat, did your question get answered?
Yeah, yes. Now I got the point, but I need to think, and then if I need more information, I'll come back to you in tomorrow's class.
Read one DRHP. I'm telling you, it will clarify most of the things, and then come back with questions.
Okay.
When will DRHP will be RHP?
Sorry?
When will DRHP will become RHP?
They always call it DRHP only. I think it is RHP, means it from draft.
It's a
It is like
version, right? When it will become the
no, it is the real version only. They call it draft. I don't know why, but basically any company that goes for an IPO, they publish that DRHP.
I heard it's just a draft version, and then it will be a kind of a finalized version.
Okay, so then it may be before the IPO, but it's the same thing. I have never heard of RHP, but yeah, you can check it out. So as I said, the recent one was the Rosari Biotech. We had already shared here also. So go through that. Anyways, that IPO has done well. I think they are quite plus now.
Nishant, one more question regarding IPO. When you are subscribing, is it gives any priority? Like if you do a lot of one lot, maybe you will be getting more. The chances of getting is more. Or if you do it for let's say 14 lots.
No. So earlier what they used to do is called proportional. So basically if total share for IPO is 1 crore and you got demand of 10 crore, whoever applied for 10 used to get 1. Simple. They used to do proportional. Now they removed that. Now they are doing lottery system. So say 10 of us applied for a lot of 10, but because so basically say lot size was 10, simple example, and instead total supply was 1 crore, but 10 crore got applied, and lot size is 10. So you, me, you, me, Nimit, Deepti, all of us applied one lot. So 10 of us applied one lot. They will just do a lottery and one person will get full 10, the rest 9 will get 0.
Okay.
It's random, basically computer generated. Now it's all computer generated. Earlier all of us would have got 1. Now in this new model, 9 will get 0, 1 will get 10. Simple. And generally when the demand is so much high compared to supply, on the listing date, the price will jump. So if the IPO is at 30 rupees, listing will be 35. So cut Seni, they will make that profit. That's a straight 17% profit.
So far, I didn't meet anyone who was not able to get. Do you have any unlucky persons who are not able to get it?
Yeah, I only applied for that. There was this bank, Jana Finance Bank or something. Jana Small Finance Bank. I did not get anything. Ujjivan Small Finance Bank, yeah. Lot of them are there because it was oversubscribed na, by 50 times or something. Whenever there is oversubscription, you will not get. Simple. And it was, I applied in the retail portion. So retail portion was oversubscribed 30 times or something. So out of 30, only 1% got. Because the lot was 300 or 40, 50. I don't remember, but yeah. It was 1 year ago, last year, this time, I think. Any other questions?
What is joint stock company? Is it like a private limited company? Joint stock company means partnership.
Joint stock company means after partnership, right? Same, more than 7 shareholder. No. Yeah, more than 7 and limit is unlimited. There is no upper limit. It can be listed or unlisted. If it is unlisted, it will be private limited means maximum is 50. Public limited means maximum is unlimited. Joint stock company is nothing but when more than 7 people start a company together.
Okay. So even if it's in Rossari Biotech, it says, initially they started with 2 people, then it became joint stock. That means it became more than 7 people.
Correct. So they must have started with a partnership and then converted to a company.
Exactly, that's what it says. Yeah. So joint stock means it's kind of private limited, but it's not.
It can be both private and public.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It is just a form of company, right? We covered this, na? Proprietorship means 1, partnership means 2 to 7. Joint stock company means more than 7, less than 50 for private limited, more than unlimited for public limited. For public limited, there is no limit. It can have unlimited shareholder, 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore, no limit. Everyone, basically today for Apple, everyone alive can have one share. So 850 crore shareholder can be there. Same for Reliance. If you take country limits, all Indians can buy. So 140 crore Indians can buy one share of Reliance. Nobody stops. Whoever has Indian passport can buy Reliance shares. Nobody will stop. Any other questions? So mutual funds we had done briefly, right? So I will cover for 5 minutes. So mutual funds, we were talking about equity mutual funds like that, right? So what are, I am hearing some disturbance. Can you hear me clearly? Hello, am I audible or any disturbance is there?
Yeah, please go ahead, Nishant.
Yeah, so mutual funds, I think I have shared some videos. I don't know if all of you watched it. It's all on the Slack channel. But basically, if I were to divide mutual funds, there are mutual funds which are equity mutual funds, which means these mutual funds will invest in equities. Similarly, I have debt mutual funds, which will invest only in debt or fixed income securities. Thirdly, I also have balanced mutual funds, which is a mix of equity and debt. Fourth, I also have mutual fund which can be focused only in real estate, but we call them REIT, which is Real Estate Investment Trust, but it is like a mutual fund only. Basically, these are all pools of money dedicated to certain sectors. So when I say equity mutual fund, it means that basically maybe just you guessed, so you probably need to drop off and log back in. So when it is a equity mutual fund, the mutual fund will invest the money which it has got from the unit holders into equities. For example, you can take any equity mutual fund in India, like HDFC equity fund or whatever, long-term equity fund or whatever the name is. So this company, what they will do is they will get money from people, say 1,000 each, and from 1 lakh people they got 1,000 each. So that is 1,000 lakh, or how much will it be? 10 crores. So that 10 crores they will invest in equities, and their objective will be to generate returns, and they will charge some fees for that. Is this clear?
Yeah, yes.
Okay, similarly, if they have to invest in debt, they will invest in what we call commercial paper, certificate of deposits, and other such instruments, where instead of me keeping the money in the bank saving account, I will give this to the mutual fund, and then they will lend it to corporates and everyone for short term, like less than 1 year, and generate income from that. Or it can be also long term debt fund, which means where they will invest in longer term, 3 year, 4 year, like that. So they can invest in government of India bonds or whatever, which will pay high interest. And they can also mix and match. So out of 100 crore portfolio, 70 crore or 60 crore can be government of India, which is quite safe. And then 30 crore, it can be some loan from, they can give that money to some companies at a higher rate of interest, at 11%, 12%, like that, to generate higher returns. But obviously the risk will also be higher. So in this case, they generate slightly higher than bank, what the bank will give me, but at a slightly higher risk. Again, if I want very safety, only mutual fund which only invest in government of India bonds, I can choose that, but their returns will be slightly lower. Then you have diversified, balanced, which is a mix of equity and debt. So which will be 50% in equity, 50% in debt, or 60-40, or 70-30, whatever is the agreement based on the mutual fund offer document. So I've just covered this one part. In the next class, when we are doing on mutual fund, we can discuss in equity what are the different kinds of funds. But please do watch some of those videos and read the material so that you will be prepared. And then once we are done with mutual funds, then we will move to sovereign wealth funds, real estate investment trusts, venture capital funds, all the different kinds of funds, hedge funds, and how they are different from each other. See, in theory, all of them are pools of capital. The way it differs is from which kind of investor they get the money. So mutual fund gets the money from retail investor, which means the minimum amount which you can invest in a mutual fund is very low. So you can start with 500 rupees per month, or $5 per month, $10 per month, like that, or €5 per month. The minimum investment criteria is low. Whereas if you go to other funds like real estate investment trust, the minimum will be 2 lakhs or 10,000 euros or $10,000, like that. When you go to hedge funds, it will be minimum $1 million or 10 crore rupees. When you go to private equity funds, it will be 20 crore, like that. So the minimum criteria changes. Sovereign wealth fund means these are managed directly by the country. So these are funds which are from the country saving. So either a country which exports a lot and got a lot of dollars, they create a fund with that, like India can do that because we have now $550 billion. So RBI can create a sovereign wealth fund with $100 billion. And these dollars we will invest in other countries like US or other countries to generate returns, because there is no point keeping the dollars just like that in the account. So we'll try to generate some return in that. Or countries which export oil like UAE and all. So like Abu Dhabi has a very large sovereign wealth fund, or Norway, which has a $1 trillion sovereign wealth fund. By selling oil, they got so much money, obviously oil, royalty, etc. So that they are saving for future generations. That's a very good case study. Norges, I have told so many times. All of you just Google Norway pension fund and you will get multiple videos and articles. And they publish very good quarterly reports, detailed quarterly reports. You can go to nbim.no or something. I can give the website if you are interested. Or any one of you can share. So that's all I had. If there are any other questions, I will take, or we will close the class.
Nishant, if I understand correctly, something like this government pension fund of Norway is there, right?
That is the one, yes.
Yeah, is the Bharat fund is also similar to like this from the central government started now?
No, Bharat fund is not like that, right? Bharat fund is different. That is totally different concept. Some other day we'll discuss. That is just to make it easier for people to buy in unlisted companies of Government of India, because Government of India has a lot of companies and all. So I need to check that, but yeah, it was more like that.
Does Indian government has something fund like this? I think they can also
No,
raise.
we are not exporters, right? That is what I just mentioned, that we can use that extra reserve that RBI has, that $550 billion, to create something like that. But we are always very slow in all this. So anyways, we are a complicated country.
But Nishant, you are saying no, only RBI has only $550 billion, but I think Apple itself has a $300 billion, right?
Yeah, but why you are comparing RBI to Apple? Yeah, Apple cannot print its own money, na. RBI can print. This $550 billion is the dollar that we earned by exporting, right? We are not a dollar country. Dollar is not our medium of exchange.
Yeah.
This dollar is extra which RBI is keeping for our imports. But again, every month we are exporting also, na. So if our exports are more than imports, why do you need that extra cash? The concept is simple. If every month India exports $50 billion and import is 49, export is covering for import, right? We will not need extra dollars. Every month we will actually get 1 billion extra. And then plus I explained, right, last time, that there are other ways to get dollars, like FPI. Like last month in equities only we got $6 billion. So that is additional money coming. So there is a lot of other ways to get dollars, and we need not always need dollars, right? We can arrange trading agreement with other countries in rupees. So we can say, boss, whatever we buy from you, we will pay in rupees. Then you can return that rupees to us and buy something from us. Like for example, I don't know, we import a lot from China. So we can say, fine, we will pay in rupees, whatever we are buying from you. And then you can give that rupee to your citizens and they can come to India as tourists and spend the rupees. We can make that arrangement.
Yeah, we had a similar arrangement with Iran as well. I think it's not,
No,
they probably.
Iran is a different story. Don't worry. Iran,
Okay.
it was a arrangement where basically the dollar payment happens to the SWIFT network controlled by American financial institution. So what we told Iran is, boss, we want to buy oil from you, but we are not able to pay you in dollar because these Americans are not allowing us. So what we will do is we will deposit this money, whatever we are paying you, in rupees. You open your account, we will allow you to open your account, whichever company is exporting. Say ABC Corporation from Iran is exporting oil to India. So ABC Corporation of Iran will be allowed to open an account with SBI in Mumbai, and in that account we will deposit the money. So that way the rupee stays in India only, and SBI is enjoying that money for giving loans, whatever. And we are getting the oil, and anytime Iran wants to buy rice from us, from that SBI account in Mumbai, they will pay to that whoever is exporting the rice to Iran, and Iran will get the rice or whatever they want to buy. So that was because of the sanctions, but that was because of sanctions, but we can utilize this for a lot of other options. So we can do this with many countries. This way, our rupees will remain in India. It will be part of our own economy, and they will, whenever they need it, they just take the rupees from there and utilize it. So, say a lot of tourists from Iran come to India, they can deposit their local currency in their government there, and they can get equivalent rupees the moment they land in India. So they will come with like a card, preloaded card. That okay, when you use that, this is like SBI issued card, and whatever is the exchange rate. So one Iran rupee is equal to 5 Indian rupees. So they deposit 20,000 there in local currency. They get 1 lakh in India. Aram se enjoy India, go back.
And I think it's a bi-directional advantage. And I think Iran currency was also falling during this deal was made. So they agree for this.
So whatever they agree, again, now let's not get into why they agreed and all. I'm saying this kind of arrangement can be done in global trade. It need not always be that we need to trade in dollars.
But in what I'm trying to say is, in generally it's not a common to trade in local currencies. I think countries won't agree because they won't trust other currencies toward the dollar.
No. That is what you need to build, exactly, because our economy is big enough, right, to absorb. So why people trade in dollar? Because they trust, right, that if say Iran has surplus of dollars, they know they can go to America and return that dollar or do something with it, or some other guy will take dollar from him. Exactly, it's a trust based. So why we can't build trust in our currency? As I said, why we can't buy from China in our currency and tell China, that you buy from us in our currency, right? That is called balance trade, right? If I export 10 billion to China, I import 10 billion from China, we can pay in any currency because both way trade is similar. So demand for both currency will be same. So I pay in rupee, they pay in rupee. Net, neither they will be left with surplus rupee.
Nishant, is it generally basic? It's always bigger economy will be the one choosing the currency. I mean, people will prefer to trade with that currency or the currency which is stable. For example, Swiss francs as such, it's always adjusted according to the markets. So, what will be the most preferred, dollar or Swiss francs? For example, Swiss francs as such, it will be not much volatile. You know?
It depends there. It depends on which country is trading with whom, right? That is what I'm saying.
And
It all
also the
depends.
fact that dollar has a great infrastructure, isn't it? Like the dollar has the systems created everywhere, and it's very easy to for companies to buy or sell them. But any other currency, it's not that easy.
Yeah, so all of that, right? But basically, the dollar was because of the American influence. So in reality, it was mainly the size of the economy, right? Because the population of US is 350 million. Population of Switzerland is only 9 million. So 40 times bigger. US is a 40 times bigger economy. So obviously the size of the economy matters, but again, it depends, right? So for example, if you are a French citizen, you are dealing only in euros, where you deal in dollars. You go to Switzerland, you can actually spend in euros. You don't even need to take a Swiss franc. Your bank charges you slightly extra charges, conversion charges. Now with TransferWise, you get this multi-currency card. So you can actually have multi-currency card, go anywhere. So there are different new products coming into the market. The world is changing. India and China have always been reluctant to allow our currency to be traded. If India, China allow, our currency can be accepted in many countries. Like we can easily, there are many small countries that will be happy to accept rupees, like Bhutan, Nepal, because they export much more to us than, they import more than export from us. So we can make that whatever we buy from Nepal, we pay in rupees, and whatever they buy from us, they also pay in rupees. Because if we are exporting 100 to Nepal, we are only importing 30. So when we pay to Nepal in rupees, they will get 30 rupees. But when they buy from us, they need extra actually, because 30 will get exhausted. They need another 70 because they are buying more from us. So Nepal, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Myanmar, all these countries will be okay to trade in rupee, but we are only not ready to allow our currency to be traded. Indonesia, a lot of countries will be okay to trade with us in rupees.
We are still under our volatility in our rupees is too much because of the decision like demonetization and all those things.
Arey bhai, that volatility is against dollar, right? But what against other currencies, right? There are different pairs, right?
For sure, it will.
When you are doing INR versus Bangladesh rupee, that will not be USD versus INR, na? Again, it is all demand supply, right? So how much demand is for rupees, how much demand is for Bangladeshi rupee? So that, or they call it taka, I think, in Bangladesh, taka. So anyways, so that all is possible, but yeah, that is based on the country's decision why they are not doing it. Anything else?
Okay. It's
Almost. Okay, we are almost done. So tomorrow, I hope at least which all, so Visa, Netflix, and Dipti, Amazon. So anyways, Vivek told next week. Ashrar, where is Ashrar? Ashrar left, huh? Fine, we will see tomorrow who presents.
Okay.
No, tomorrow we'll have Visa. No, Visa will take time. Ours is it's quite big actually.
Okay,
It will take some time.
Good,
okay,
good.
thank you all. Take care. Bye.
Yeah, thank you. Bye bye. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. Bye.